Welcome back. Because of increases in life expectancy and the possible reduction of Social Security benefits, future retirees may leave behind smaller inheritances for their loved ones. Our next guest says the key to overcoming this is to establish a winning strategy for growing your wealth. Joining me now with more is Jerry Golden, a retirement planning expert with Golden Retirement Services. Pardon me. Welcome, Jerry.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good to have you here. Let's start with something that I know people just think so much about, which is that they're constantly given advice on what to invest in. People say, oh, you got to invest in the munis, you got to do this, you got to do that. Sounds like all tactics, but you say that's not the way to start.
Yeah, I think individuals should approach their retirement like businesses do in creating a plan. You start with objectives, and then you focus on a strategy, and then you get in tactics. Tactics might be munis, might be small cap, but if you don't have the objectives, you don't have the strategy, you can't pick what the right tactic should be.
A lot of people wonder whether it's all about accumulating wealth or income. You say income should come first. Why?
Well, if you don't create enough income that's secure, then you can't invest as aggressively as you might, and therefore all of the various estate tax planning and income tax planning are almost irrelevant. So our view is create income first, and then wealth accumulation second, and then you can do the estate planning your other guests will talk about.
I think people get so caught up in, you know, I've got to do this plan and I've got the steps lined out and I'm not changing it. Is that the right way?
No, I think that, you know, when you create a plan for a 45-year-old, the next 15 years, things may happen, but they're pretty much going to be in the same state. If you do it for somebody older, they have to do a plan that's going to take into account changed personal circumstances. Unfortunately, health or illness may change, and then market changes are going to have a much greater impact on an older person than a younger person because they don't have the opportunity to go back to work or get bonuses and recover from poor markets.
When you say avoid unintended consequences, and I would think that some of those unintended consequences might be market moves, but I'm not sure that's what you mean.
Now, the unintended consequences, as we see it, is there are a lot of rules of thumb about how people should manage their money, how people should take out income. Unfortunately, with a rule of thumb, you may end up with one unintended consequence. You underspend. You don't support your lifestyle. In the opposite, you may end up with an unintended consequence of leaving more to your children or grandchildren that you intended. So you have to develop a strategy that you're going to adjust over time and avoid those unintended consequences.
Of course, there are a lot of things you don't think about that could happen. I know a lot of people worry about, you know, what if I become disabled and I can't make the money I expected to make? What if I have to be hospitalized for long periods of time? Are there ways to secure myself against all those problems?
Yeah, and, you know, one of the, I come from the insurance world, although we're focused on planning, and people can choose to self-insure against some of these risks, health risk, longevity risk, living too long. But self-insuring against those risks is very expensive. I'll give you an example. If you were to buy a home and you didn't have property and casualty insurance, you might have to set up a reserve of 40% of the cost of your home, which would, you know, force you to buy a less expensive home. Why do people think they can self-insure, you know, some of these risks, that is outliving their money, or a disability in particular when they're, you know, in retirement?
Well, long-term care insurance is one of those things. It's particularly expensive, and a lot of people on the fence about whether they should buy it or not. What do you tell your clients?
I think that, you know, the fact that it's expensive reflects that people are utilizing it and are incurring these kinds of claims. So I think when you look at your objectives, you said, how important is it that I leave a specific amount to my children or grandchildren? Right. If you don't do long-term care, you may find that those children or grandchildren are going to end up with a lot less than you expected. Long-term care is a way of paying for some of those bills, but also maintaining that estate, if that's important to you.
So, Jerry, you're saying the long-term care insurance can be worth it if your primary goal is to help those kids out. Let's talk a little bit more about an idea that I think you're interested in as well, which is self-insurance. What do you mean by that?
Well, self-insurance is the idea that, particularly for people in retirement, is that you can take your pool of assets and let it provide you income for life, maybe take care of those disabilities or medical claims, and at the same time leave an estate. That may be one approach that people could adopt. Another approach is to integrate into that insurance products that address longevity, address long-term care, and of course address medical expenses.
So, Jerry, help me out with this problem. Some insurance products out there, the returns on them not very good, not so high because you're given this idea that they're incredibly safe. How do you balance that with products or investments, say stocks, which have none of those guarantees, but certainly have higher rates of return, or at least have the opportunity to have higher rates of return?
Well, one of the things that Golden Retirement has done is build models that actually can look at the trade-offs between the investment returns under pure investments, stocks, mutual funds, et cetera, and against insurance products. And so it shouldn't be an emotional decision. It should be a rational one, looking at the relative returns and the relative benefits you have of really getting rid of some of those risks.
We're always looking for those rational investments, aren't we? Jerry Golden from Golden Retirement Resources, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to leave your wealth to benefactors other than your kids, a trust may be just the vehicle to do it. So, when is a trust the right time for you, and how do you set one up? Joining me from his offices in Philadelphia is Rick Menkovich, Vice President of PNC Bank. Welcome.
Thank you, Jerry.